phone's picking it up, DC.
Yeah, I'm gonna change it. After I share it,
Picking it up, DC.
I got it.
I'm gonna change it.
Well, hello, everyone. This is DC with the DC Capstone Report, a special live broadcast today on the just several hours away from the college football semifinal game against Notre Dame. And I'm just glad that you could join us today. We like to do this every now and then. In the past, I've been able to broadcast live from the games, but this year is just a little different. We've been able to, we're at home and enjoying this from home. And as you can see, we have a special guest with us today. Special guest on our live broadcast today is Martin Houston. Martin is a 1992 national champion, played fullback on the 92 championship team. Martin gives me a platform every Tuesday morning to be able to be live on his show to be an analyst, to comment with him on his show, the Martin Houston Show, that's live on Tide 100.9 every morning at 6 a.m. And he allows me to come on Tuesday mornings and do a broadcast. And we wanted to come with you live. One of the things that I always do when I come on live is I honor my best friend Gary Shores. It was Gary's vision that we have the DC Capstone Report today. Gary passed away 2 years ago. And I was going to stop doing the DC Capstone Report, but his brother Lance Shores encouraged me to continue on, that he would help me produce. And we have gotten into this deeper every year. It was Gary's vision that one day we'd be able to go live. And so in 2 years, the technology is really caught up with it. We're able to do live broadcast and get the message out there about Alabama football. And what we do every week on the DC Capstone Report is provide a podcast where we discuss and we talk about the upcoming games. And that podcast has been up for a week now, and thousands of people have been able to view it. But today on this show, what I wanted to do is I wanted to just come on live and let's talk about this upcoming game against Notre Dame. And I want to bring Martin Houston in as our guest because he has a unique perspective. Our line and DC Capstone Report is bringing a unique perspective to Alabama sports. And so none other than Martin Houston to have a unique perspective. He's played in a SEC championship game. He's played in a national championship game. And he has a perspective as a player that I think is going to be very beneficial for us today. So for me to set it up, I want to talk about first, what does Alabama have to do on offense? Because Martin's an offensive guy, and then later on we're going to talk about the defense. So breaking it down, Martin, welcome to the DC Capstone Report. We're glad you're here this morning.
DC, so glad to be with you. Hadn't had this opportunity to do this in this particular format, but first of all, thank you and Lance, and of course, giving honor to Gary for his vision for DC Capstone Report, and you guys not just having the vision but executing on it, and then being a really almost 20% of what I do on the Martin Houston Show, joining me every Tuesday. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and hello to all of your listeners out there.
Well, I know we're going to get right into the broadcast today, talking about football. At the end of the broadcast, I want our listeners to hang around because I'm going to ask you some personal questions about where are they now type things and where you've been and what you're doing. And it's great to have a national championship caliber player as yourself who's played also on this level and played the professional level with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But, one thing, Martin, that I've always, every time I go onto your show on Tuesday mornings, I listen to the show all the time. And in that early intro, you have coaches, Coach Stallings and Coach Pat Dye, talking about you and what you did in your career. But they talk about that fullback position, and I guess I want to go ahead and give you a chance to talk about fullbacks. The other day, I understand that you got a shout out from Eli Gold on the broadcast, and I believe we were in a situation where we were in a short yardage situation, and we'd lined up with the fullback. I believe at that time we had Brian Robinson in as fullback and Najee Harris in the backfield. It looked comfortable to you. It looked like something you were familiar with. And what happened on that play that you got so excited about?
Well, first of all, thanks, Eli, for remembering the old dinosaurs. We're almost extinct, but every once in a while there's an occasional showing, sighting, I should say, sort of like Bigfoot. Is not a myth. Fullbacks actually exist a little bit. But watching that play, DC, I think when you put an athlete in that position, it can be a bona fide weapon as a part of your offense. And to see a local kid, Brian Robinson, on a 3rd and short, I may have been 4th and short, I can't remember, 3rd or 4th down, but needing that 1 yard. And the quickest way to get to a destination is straight ahead. So he's a little closer to the line. He's an athlete. He made a good cut and finished off the run, going and falling forward, which all good fullbacks, that's their goal and desire. So it was good to see that. Now all I'm waiting on is the fullback wheel route or a fullback out in the flat. A man can dream, DC.
I know, and I think Alabama utilizes his running backs very well in the passing game. And now that you brought that up, let's go ahead and start our analysis of the day's game with the running back room. And let's talk a little bit about what you think today that we know that Alabama needs to establish the run. And I think Najee Harris needs to have a good game. And, we have a really, what I would consider at the top level, Najee Harris and Brian Robinson. Alabama has a very veteran running back room. And we have a really good coach in Charlie Huff, who's done a great job this year. But and we have some good freshmen that are coming along behind them. But, Martin, we had some breaking news this morning that Charles Huff didn't make the trip. And now there's been no reports that I can confirm of why, except I would assume there's some kind of contact tracing maybe in his family with the COVID situation or something of that nature. It looks like Alex Mortensen, Chris Mortensen's son, if you will, is going to be elevated from an analyst role to work in that position. So you've been a running back, and you know what our running back room consists of. Do you see any thing that today that could cause a problem for Alabama in the running game, not having Charlie Huff in the stadium or coaching from the sidelines?
Well, I don't think it'll be a problem per se because you hit something early on that you have a veteran running back room in the first 2 guys. The execution of the players themselves will be minimally impacted. Now, a coach's ability, to give you an example, something that my coach to me in 1992, and from that point on, I played my best 3 games. He didn't do a lot in DC when it came to substitution. Coach Larry Kirk said he really didn't coach us a lot on Saturday. He just got us ready during the week. Then he would allow us to play on Saturday. But if you messed up, you knew to go ahead and come out because he was watching. Okay. Well, we had a fake to Derek Lassick, and Derek did a great job of faking it, so much so that the linebacker ran past my block and hit him. And I tried to play it off, DC, like nothing happened. And I went back in the huddle, and I knew I should have came out because I missed my assignment. Well, about that time, Lynch taps me on the back, and of course, I run out. I get to the sideline, and the next play, Lynch kills the Auburn linebacker. He looks at me and he says, "That's how Alabama fullbacks are supposed to block."
And
Needless to say, DC, Lynch did not play a lot after that. I mean, I literally was like, that's never going to happen again, even if I only have one or two more games. And of course, I had a great game. The rest of that game was my best rushing game. And then, of course, had a good game against Florida, my best blocking grade all year, and had a good game in the national championship against Miami.
So the coaches do play a role, and it's usually a momentary role at a moment, whatever case in point happens, they step up. So that's something that we could be missing without Charlie Huffman. He has done a great job. He's a great recruiter, of course, but he's also done a great job in coaching this running back room. I think having two veterans and having a lot of freshmen, you got to coach different ways. You got to coach the veterans one way and the freshmen another way. Well, I agree with that.
Absolutely, DC. And one of the things that could come up, and I guess I should have finished that thought was those key moments of having the right guy in when the right play call is made. I coached running backs in high school this year, and there were certain plays that when the coach called them, I knew to make a substitution. I knew which back was best at that. And even though a guy may not be the starter, he may actually do something better or run a play better. And as you look at our fullback, even going to that, DC, sometimes it's Joshua McMillan that's in at linebacker, right? Yeah, Joshua McMillan. And so if they just call for the fullback formation and it's a run play, I think they want Brian Robinson in. And you have to make sure that the right personnel is in at the right time, the right play call. And that's where a coach probably has his biggest assignment. Substitution and personnel timing would be probably the biggest potential hurdle or incident that could happen today that hurt the Tide.
So there is some things to look for, and one of the things is substitution patterns and running back getting in the right play at the right time. So we can't really talk about running the ball and being effective running the ball without talking about the offensive line. I know that's the reason you made so many yards when you made them, because you helped block for the running back for the running back when they were blocking, when they were running the ball. But when you were running the ball, you relied on the offensive line. They were the only thing right in front of you. So talk a little bit about this offensive line, Martin. I know they say that Notre Dame has the best offensive line, so to speak, but Alex Leatherwood kind of took a little bit of a chip on the shoulder of that this week because of that. He kind of, in speaking, after all the questions have been asked of him, he volunteered that this Alabama offensive line, even without Landon Dixon, was going to try to show that they deserve the Joe Moore Award. Now, that's something you don't really hear coming out of the Alabama locker room a lot, talking about these awards. Speak to that just a minute as far as about where the mindset is for this offensive line.
Well, first of all, losing Landon Dickerson is a huge, huge loss, DC. We talked about it on the Martin Houston show. He played 725 plays, and he missed 2 assignments.
Right.
Okay? 2 assignments out all year. So you don't just replace that. So that's going to be a challenge. And then I think more importantly than that is his emotion, his emotional leadership and inspiration that he provides to all of the guys. But with that said, you couldn't have asked for a better situation or circumstance as far as his replacement. You have a 5th-year guy who has started at the position, so that's huge. But then, DC, he's also played all the other positions all the way out to tight end. So he really understands what the defense is trying to do across the board. And so he'll be good at making the assignments.
Right.
I mean, the assignment calls. And one last thing that he has that I did not realize until today, the perfect replacement. The Rose Bowl was moved from California to Arlington, Texas. Chris Owens is from Arlington, Texas, and getting to play in front of his hometown. So I'm telling you, I think that all of those things with his experience at the position, his experience across the line, being a 5th-year guy, and getting to play in front of his hometown is going to help him be able to do a good job.
And I agree with you 100%, Martin. I said you're not going to have one person, though, be able to replace Landon Dickerson. And what I meant by that was Chris Owens can do just what you said. He can play the position, he can make the calls, and he can play a really great game and not affect us there. But there's two other things that Landon Dickerson brought to the team that somebody else got to step up. And I think that, one, we saw a little bit in Alex Leatherwood. Landon Dickerson is the passion. He's the enthusiastic one. He brings that passion motor on every play. So my question was, who's going to step up and bring that passion? I think we saw Alex Leatherwood do that in the press conference a little bit. But the other thing is, who's going to be the mauler? Who's going to be able to impose their will on that guy right across the line from him? And I think myself, Deonte Brown is going to have to step up in this game and be the mauler that he was several years ago. And I think it's going to be a three-headed replacement. You're going to have Chris Owens replace him as the actual center and doing all the center things. Alex Leatherwood is going to have to bring the passion. And Deonte Brown is going to have to bring the moxie or the mauling part of this line and get this line ready to play. And I really think it's going to be a really good effort today. And I think you're going to see it show up in the run game.
I think you will too, DC. And I think you'll both sides of Owens. What happens sometimes is when you get a guy like Landon Dickerson, they are so good, so dominant that the other guys, it's not that they don't play to the best of their ability. They just meet up to where he's at. And yet he takes them higher, but they also don't surpass him. And then all of a sudden they go out and you go, oh my God, I had never even noticed Emil Ekiyor was doing what he's doing. Well, Emil Ekiyor can be a mauler. Deonte Brown can be a mauler. And all of a sudden, instead of Chris Owens being the guy who's leading that and pulling it, you're going to see Deonte Brown on the combo blocks with Owens, or Emil Ekiyor on the combo with Owens. They're going to say, hey, I got you. You come along and you help me, versus the other way around. And I think you could end up seeing as inspired. I'm not in any way going to say that you replace an All-American with the passion and all of that, but you can, for a game or two, find that lightning in a bottle where the guys just say, hey, let's do this for Dickerson. Let's show everybody how good we are. And that's what I think you saw inspire Leatherwood. I think that's what you saw inspire Devontae Smith this year. Yeah. When Waddle went out, it was like, okay, everybody think that I was playing good because it's not nothing against Waddle, but Smith was like, I'm going to raise my game to the next level because I do have another gear, and I'm going to play in that gear 24/7, the full game, full time. And I think you're going to see that in the offensive line today.
I agree. Well, let's move on to the passing game a little bit. Now, we talked about the running game. I think we're going to have a good game there. Let's talk a little about the passing game. Everyone of the offensive players that spoke this week talked about 6 and 14, the numbers they've seen on the film, 6 and 14, the linebacker, the safety that's really going to do a good job, they say, on Notre Dame's team. So, Mac Jones, in my opinion, he's going to have to play within himself today and try not to do too much. And I think he has had some preparation for this, because I believe Notre Dame is going to try to drop so many bags. It's going to cause us to try to run the ball on their defensive front. And they believe their defensive front can stop our running game. And so I believe that we're going to have to take the short passes. They're going to take away the deep threats and try to take the short passes across the middle. But I think we're still going to be able to get those deep balls, because I think our play action pass is going to work, because the running game is going to work so well. So let's speak a little bit to this, Martin, as far what does Mac Jones have to do today? What does Devontae Smith have to do today? And maybe Miller Forrestall in the passing game, maybe Najee Harris out of the backfield. Talk a little bit about the passing game. What do we have to do today to take advantage of this Notre Dame defense, which is good, but gave up 600 yards against Clemson?
Well, if they take the approach that you just laid out, DC, where they depend on that defensive front to stop the running game and put more into the passing game with the dropping of an extra DB or an extra linebacker or two, then the key word there is patience, that they will have to show in terms of all of them, in the route running, in the blocking, in the throwing. But I think that I would say that Mac Jones showed, even though he'll take it off the top off of it with deep balls, I think he showed a lot of what the pros look for in a quarterback when we played Arkansas.
Right.
I think that Arkansas said, hey, y'all might beat us, but you're going to have to be patient. You're going to have to take the ball and take the drop-off passes. And he did that. And he did it with great execution and great patience. I think he was like 24 of 28 or something like that. Didn't have one of those 350, 375, 400-yard games, but he was still very efficient and very effective. And if that's what Notre Dame does, then I think they will get frustrated, DC, in that before we get frustrated in that. And when they make that adjustment, then you'll see Najee Harris take over at the end of the game.
I agree 100%. So I think it's a Devontae Smith, Mac Jones, Najee Harris game. I think it's the three superstar game. I think it's their game to shine on offense. And I think we can do it with the running game. I think we do it with the passing game. And I think we're going to mix in the tight ends as well. Miller Forrestall, Jaleel Billingsley. I think each one of them are going to get some good play in this game. I think John Mechie is going to be really good in this game as well. I think he's coming off a really good game in the Florida game, and I think he's really excited about playing. So I think our passing game is going to be well. So I believe on offense we're going to have a really good show. Let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. And just kind of talk a little bit about the defense. Now, one thing I think that we've heard from Notre Dame, one thing they try to do is they're going to try to ball control, run the ball, take the air out of the ball, so to speak, and limit Alabama's offensive possession. I think what they've said is, hey, that when they get the ball, they're going to score. We want to try to limit that by ball control. So I think when you go up against the ball control offense, I really think this Alabama defense is built to stop that kind of offense. What do you think, Martin?
I do, and I think you're right. I think Notre Dame is their best defense is probably gonna be their offense. At least that's their mindset going in. So I definitely think you'll see them attempt to limit our possessions. If you limit the possessions, then no matter how many times we score, it can still be a tighter game. If we only have 7 possessions versus 10, then we can only score a maximum of 49 points. So I think that's going to be their approach. But I think this defense is better. I know we may look at the last game we saw them and go, man, I thought the defense was better after the Ole Miss game, but they're not any better. And I totally disagree with that sentiment that this defense is not better. Now, are they elite as you would like? No. Did they make some mistakes? Yes. Did we get outcoached in certain situations? Yes. But DC, like I told people on my show, I'm like, guys, why is it when we score 55 or 63, it's because our offense is great, but when someone else scores on us, it's because our defense is bad. Florida was as talented on offense as you'll see in college, with their ability to spread it around, trust accuracy, and Mullins is immature, and he bothers me when I watch him coach, but that doesn't mean he's not good at what he does. And so I don't think that Notre Dame is that diverse in their offense. So I think we have less to worry about. We don't have as many matchups to worry about. And as a result of that, I think the ball control approach that they take may actually backfire on them.
And I agree with you 100% on that. So let's break down the defense in 2 sections. Let's talk about our front 7. I think our front 7 are going to have to play really well during this ball control type offense to stop the run. And one thing I worry about more in the running game is Ian Book's ability to extend plays with his legs and extend the third down. We need to get off the field on third downs. When we get them in a good situation on third down, we need to get off the field. I think that will help us get more touches on offense if we can do that. So talk a little bit, Martin, about that in a running game where you prepared for the games where in '92 we ran the ball a lot. We knew that was our run. We weren't going to throw the ball a lot with Jay Barker. We're going to run with you and Lassick and others. So how do you look at the other side of the ball on the defense? What does Alabama need to do to stop a ball control running game on the front seven?
The biggest thing, most of the time you say third down is the most important down. And it is in terms of getting off the field. If you get somebody to third down and you make the play, then you get the ball back. But if you're playing a ball control offense, someone who wants to run the ball more or use a short passing game, then you want to get them behind the sticks on first down. You want to make sure you keep them in 2nd and 7, 2nd and 8. You don't want them having 2nd and 5 or 5 or 6 and less, because they're right on track to get the first down if they're getting 3 to 4 yards a pop. So you want to make sure you keep them in that 2nd and 7, 3rd and 8. 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9, or 2nd and 10 is even better if they decide to pass on first down. I think that's the key to this defense. Not getting tricked, DC. Will Anderson has played as well as any freshman we've had in a long time, and he's played that outside position as well as anything. But you know what? He plays his role, and he plays it aggressively. They can use that against him when you have a quarterback that can pull it and run. Will will close down on that end and sometimes give up that edge to make that tackle. So if they can get him to do that on first down, then you can also slip the back out in the backfield or a tight end just behind him, as well as the quarterback pull it on the run. So that would be the key to me on them having success. It starts with first down.
And I agree. And I think Will Anderson and Christopher Allen has by far exceeded my expectations for the outside rushing ability, especially late in the season.
Yes.
Increased with the sacks and everything. But sometimes that can be used against you. So go ahead and talk about yours and my favorite play, that wheel route. They can be used against you in that rushing, especially when you're rushing the outside rush. You're so aggressive like that. And I think a couple of teams have used that against Alabama this year. So that falls on, I think, Dylan Moses and Christian Harris to be able to cover that back out of the backfield. And we went into this on your show one day and talked technical terms about it. Tell our listeners out there, why is it so difficult? Why even in the best defense is hard to cover the wheel route?
Well, it's extremely hard if they're playing man. It's difficult if you're playing zone, because guys are flashing in front of you and all that. And that wheel route, for those who may not fully understand that, is when the player, whether it's a running back, wide receiver, tight end, whatever, starts in somewhere in the back of the formation, the middle of the formation, and they run to the outside, DC, as far as sideline as they can, and then they go up the field. Couple things is happening there. First of all, is if you're in man to man, the linebacker a lot of times that has that running back, if it's two linebackers, it's generally the backside linebacker, potentially based on the alignment of the running back. If the linebacker lines up and they count off those wide receivers, the whole goal of the offense is to try to get the backside linebacker where he has to cover that guy. Why? Because he has to run past his neighboring linebacker. He has to, if the tight end goes out and the outside linebacker is in coverage, he has to run past that guy, past the tight end that's coming across the field. And most of the time what you have in that is the routes, DC, that are in conjunction with that is the outside. If you just have a single guy, you're bringing him across the field, so the DB that has him in man coverage is having to run across the field. And guess who ends up getting picked? The linebacker that has that coverage. And so that's in and of that, that's hard enough as it is, DC. But let's say you don't run any of that cross action. that route is still hard to cover from a linebacker, because remember I told you the motion he starts on is he's running to the sideline. Well, guess what? The linebacker is running to the sideline as well. But one guy is running sideways and the other guy is running sideways and then facing the way he wants to go. So even if Dylan Moses, for instance, is right lockstep with that linebacker, with the running back, when that running back turns it up the field, Dylan has to stop going sideways and turn up and keep speed and keep up with that guy the entire time. So it's a difficult play just because of the simple physics of the way the players have to cover each other and run out there. And it's a greatly designed route. And we've seen some teams get some have some success with that against us in the past.
And you're exactly right. It's a physics thing, a momentum. The back's in the momentum. The actual, when you're running laterally, you're actually not in momentum. You're at rest. You have to start your momentum again. That's where you lose 1 or 2 steps. And it's tough enough on a running back, but some teams have taken advantage of Alabama by moving a wide receiver in the backfield. Lane Kiffin was fantastic about that with Elijah Moore. We saw Mullen do that with Tony, bringing the wide receiver, which is already a step or 2 faster than the back linebackers on them. And when they get that momentum, it is difficult to catch up with them. So I think that's something to watch for in our front seven. Can we handle the wheel route out of the backfield?
Did you see how Alabama covered it late in the game against Florida? They actually had the outside linebacker run with that guy because he was already there. So he didn't have to, when he saw that guy come, he could, what they call, open his hips or flip his hips and be running. And then if the guy cut the route short, he just planted and came back. So he didn't have to change directions or anything. He could see that guy coming, pick him up out of the backfield, and then follow him down the field. And we covered it better in that scenario.
Okay, well, finally on defense, let's go with our back side, the back end. The back end, we're talking about our corners and safeties, and then our dime or nickel package. So in that scenario, you got Patrick Surtain and Josh Jobe on the corners. You got Daniel Wright, Jordan Battle on the safeties. Then you got 2 freshmen, which are no freshmen any longer, Malachi Moore and Brian Branch, really coming in on the nickel dime packages. So they're going to have to really do a good job, I think. I believe this defense up front is going to be able to create some turnovers and opportunities for turnovers. But these corners are going to have to really do a good job on the outside receivers. I agree with you. I don't think Notre Dame has the same athletes that Florida had or that Ole Miss had, for example. But I think they're still going to try to take advantage of some plays that they took advantage of, which I believe will give our athletic back-end players some opportunities for turnovers. What do you think about our safeties and corners in our play in this game?
Well, it'll be interesting to see how much we see Moore and Branch in terms of the number of defensive backs, those 2 in at the same time, DC, because one of the things that Notre Dame does that we hadn't seen a lot of is they play 3 tight ends.
Yep.
And what 3 tight ends does is, first of all, it gives you an advantage in the running game. Not necessarily an advantage. It just creates another gap. In other words, when you add that tight end in, now you got A gap, B gap, C gap, and then the outside gap is the D gap. Well, when you add that 4th lineman or that second tight end on that side, now all of a sudden you have a D gap right at the line and then an E gap. And the defense has to adjust to that differently than they do when you just have 1 tight end. And Notre Dame runs 3 tight ends at times. So we really may see our DBs on islands if we're running man in that scenario. And so what is going to be critical is in the Florida game, there was several times we were in perfect position, DC. We just didn't make the play. So we have to make sure that we keep our eyes. Nick Saban says it all the time. Eye discipline. And what he's saying is, look at what your keys are and not everything else. If you're in man coverage, either look at that guy's helmet or his nameplate. I don't know if Notre Dame even has nameplates anymore. I mean, I don't think they have name, but look at right at that back of that neck. You can do a lot of things, but that back of that neck doesn't move, DC. You can move the head, but that neck stays in the same spot.
Exactly.
So keep your eyes there. And when he turns, you turn. Don't try to find the ball. That's the key. And then let's make sure we have the right cleats on. I don't know if it was our cleats, our footing, or what, but you go back and look. 2 of the big Florida plays, our guys fell down, literally tripped, fell, stumbled. And so you can't have those types of mistakes. And then you have to make sure that you don't have busted coverages when you're in that type of scenario where they have got you everybody up in the box because of their formation, and then you're out on the islands, DC. You have got to make sure that you know that you're in man. You know if there's a combo coverage, you know if there's a switch coverage or banjo based on what they call it. You have to know all of those things, or you'll see guys run wide open. One quick thing about we were talking about Landon Dickerson. Surtain is one of those guys that we remember what happened to him last week against Florida. This year, he only had 43 passes thrown at him all year and only 18 receptions. But we remember last week. I think if Surtain goes out and plays like he's capable of playing, Notre Dame doesn't have anybody that scares me in a one-on-one situation or a mismatch situation against our DBs. So if they do what they're capable of doing, I think we'll be fine.
And I think intangibles of the game, we're playing in Jerry World where we have notoriously played well, and playing on the turf there that we've notoriously played well. I think it does well for our speed, the speed of our team to match up well there. The last thing, just a quick note, is our special teams this year. I'm more confident in our special teams this year than I have in years past. So I think Will Riker was snubbed. I think he at least should have been by the SEC honors as good as he's done this year. He didn't get enough credit. I think we've really kind of honed in on Charlie Scott as our punter. He's done an adequate job as a transfer in from Air Force, the brother of J.K. Scott. So I think he's done really well. So in this game, I'm not really concerned about our special teams. But you got to give the nod on the other side. Notre Dame has a great special teams. Their kicker, the punter, their local prospect here out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama from Hillcrest, Bramlett there. He does a really good job of punting the ball. So I think see how our punting team matches up. If Devontae Smith goes back to accept those punts, see how we can match up against those long punts. He makes some long punts, but sometimes he outkicks his coverage and will give an opportunity for Devontae Smith to take one back in this game if we're not careful. So I think overall I'm comfortable. I haven't been able to say that in a while. How about you, Martin? Are you comfortable with our kicking game?
Totally comfortable with the kicking game. 85 for 85, Will Reichert in terms of kicks this year. 73 straight extra points, and dating back to last year, his last kick field goal and 13 consecutive field goals made. We didn't make 13 consecutive extra points in the previous 3 or 4 years. Totally probably the biggest snub ever. Groza National Award finalist, but didn't even make third team in the SEC. I don't know what the coaches were looking for when they snubbed him, but totally feel comfortable with that. And, in the equivalent of Scott is not booming the ball, but it's consistent. And you're consistently – way Coach Stallings used to teach us, David, DC, there is you're looking at picking up 3 to 4 first downs when you punt the ball. That's what it's equivalent to. And he's right in that average of 35 yards or so net, meaning that you're flipping the field, and if your defense comes out and stops them, then you can gain yardage each and every time you punt the ball. And that's what you want when you're punting the ball, is to start off where you're at or a little better. And he's been able to do that to a certain degree.
All right, well, let's close out this portion of the broadcast with our predictions and our overall assessment. I'll go first, Martin. You can be thinking about yours. I think this game is set up for perfectly for Alabama. I believe Notre Dame is better than the team we played in the previous championship game. I think Notre Dame's going to come out and have a good showing in this game. I think they're going to play with a chip on their shoulder early on. They're going to want to try to prove something. But I think Alabama just has too much talent, too much athletes. And if we play with the game that I think we're going to play by running the ball to set up the pass, and Mac Jones plays with himself, we limit our turnovers, I really think this game gets away early, and Alabama wins this game. My prediction is out there already on the podcast, but it's 52-17 Alabama. Martin, what do you got?
Well, that's pretty close to the prediction I had. I gave Reichert a couple of kicks. In the offense, 7 touchdowns. So I had it 55-17. So pretty close to the same thought process as we go there. Let me ask you a quick question, DC.
Sure.
Brian Kelly said that Notre Dame was not playing for reputation, not playing to save face or whatever. Is this an opportunity for Notre Dame to be respected, or if they don't, is it going to be hard for an undefeated Notre Dame game to get back to this level if there's any other options if they get embarrassed again?
Yeah, my experience has been, Martin, if your coach has to come out and say that you're not playing for respect or gay, it means that they are, because that's what the perception is, and perception is greater than reality sometimes. And I believe if Notre Dame goes in this game and they get blown out, they get, like, I believe if the score is anywhere near what I predicted or you predicted, then I think that they're gonna knock themselves down a little bit as to as a pretender instead of a contender. You know, some people don't even believe they were the best choice for this 4 spot. Most people believe Texas A&M was the team that should have got that slot. And I think if they lose big, it's just going to give more value, more credence to that narrative that they were the wrong team that got chosen. Now, I think you and I spoke about this on your show. Have we gotten any better with than the BCS? Well, the BCS computers would have picked these 4 teams. If Alabama blows out Notre Dame, what happened to the committees looking at the eye test? If you could watch the Texas A&M play and watch Notre Dame play, could you have made a difference and given the nod to Texas A&M? If Notre Dame gets blown out, I think the obvious narrative is yes. And so I think that sets Notre Dame back. If they play competitive, of course, I think that it could help them in their stature. And if they luck up and Alabama does very bad and they win the game, of course it vaults them in. So I think Kelly saying that is not really I don't take any credence in that, because I really believe him saying that means that yes, Notre Dame has to do well in this game, or they lose that respect in the college football world.
And that would have been my statement to them, DC. I would have been like, listen, we're playing for respect here, guys. People don't think we should be here. I wouldn't have been shying away from it. I would have been using that to motivate all week. I know Ryan Day. That's what he did. He took to me, even though it was arrogant, he did the right thing. He should be telling his coach, hey, they don't want to play us because they know we can beat them. I know we didn't play but 6 games, whatever. And so to me, the committee is on the line with these 2 games today, because if Ohio State and Notre Dame both get embarrassed, the committee, what do we need the committee for? The computers were picking these teams and had no ability. And I don't think the computer factored in enough that Ohio State only played 6 games in terms of the BCS. But the eye test and the resume and the human factor of you understanding, a computer may not understand that if I have to play 11 games and you play 6, I got a great chance of losing 1 or 2 of those, even though I'm clearly the better team. I think the computer a lot of times just gives the victory to the better team because they don't know the human factor of fumbles and rain and weather and et cetera.
I agree, 100%. Well, we close out this live broadcast with our analysis of the game. But before we leave you today, I want our listeners to really get to know you a little bit better, Martin. I know kind of a "Where Are They Now" segment. You you finished your career at Alabama. You played the national championship game, won that game, went on to play with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I believe an injury kept you from forward in that career, but looks like there's been a lot of great things going on. Tell our listeners a little bit about where you are now and where you've gotten in your career.
Well, absolutely. I'm an extremely blessed man, without a doubt. God has been good to me from day one, and after my football career was over, I was blessed and had a degree in marketing before I graduated and left the university, and have been able to use that. I've worked for a name that many Bama fans will be familiar with to start my career, Bob Bumhauer. And his was his marketing director, and worked for AT&T, which was Bell South at the time, and have done several different ministry projects. One called Cruise with a Cause, where we charter a cruise ship and take 2,000 plus missionaries to the islands and do missions work while we have a great conference and teaching seminars on the ship and a lot of other entertainment. I've planted 2 churches, University Worship Center and Catalyst Community Church. The interesting story, DC, on the Catalyst Church was my wife and I, family, spent 18 months planning it. We had one service, and then the tornado of 2011 wiped it out, and I went on from there. But as of recent, in my mid 40s, just made a career change and got into the insurance industry, and been working there since 14. And as of today, I am the general manager for Alabama One Insurance, an insurance agency we started from scratch. So that's been fun. As you can see, I like entrepreneurial opportunities, I guess. And so did that, and also oversee the financial wellness department for Alabama One Credit Union in my full-time job, but also do some empowerment leadership speaking. And then, of course, God has blessed and allowed me the privilege and opportunity to pastor Harvest Church in Coker. And for those who don't know, where Coker is just outside the edge of Tuscaloosa, going toward Gordo, Mississippi, and Columbus, Mississippi. So that's kind of what I do in terms of the work life, professional life, and great privilege I have there. As I said, pastoring the church. Have 4 awesome children, ranging from 18 to 29. Must be getting old. And then and 3 grandchildren, 2 boys, 1 girl. And then, of course, have been married to my lovely wife. Many Bama fans may remember I was married when I was in school, DC. Well, we celebrated 31 years of marriage. So 31 and still going strong. So extremely blessed. Been in Tuscaloosa the whole time. Haven't left Tuscaloosa other than that brief time I was up with the Steelers.
Well, that's a great story to see where you come from. Definitely, I can see where God's blessed you and your family. And before we end, though, I know your youngest, your 18-year-old, he's following in his dad's footsteps. He's played. I was able to cover from the DC Capstone Report a Northridge football game live before the COVID started, where he had a really great game that night. Got to show some live footage, but I understand he's gotten several offers. Care to tell us a little bit about your son, Simeon Houston?
Yes, Simeon is, as you said, he's the caboose, is what we call him. He's graduating from Northridge High School, and will have an opportunity to go on to play college football at some level. He's Dabo has extended the possibility of him to go and play at Clemson as a walk-on. They don't have any scholarships, and of course that's intriguing for any young man, an opportunity like that. But I think he'll probably start off at a smaller school with several different options. And right now he's not real big on going a long way from home. So right now he's looking at LaGrange College and Huntington as 2 options. Of course, some interest. He has some interest in UAB potentially, as well as North Alabama, South Alabama. And the school that he would really love to get some love from, DC, is Kennesaw State. They run a fullback that runs the ball. so he's unashamedly a Kennesaw guy if they pick up the phone and call, but that hasn't happened yet. But the biggest thing is what I tell him is, I said, I know your desires may be to play it. They can find you. Go where you. And for those, I didn't say what position he played, but he plays H-back, back, kind of a combination of those three.
Well, I tell you, I've watched him play. He looks a lot like his dad. He does a great job as a fullback. So anybody out there watching today has any pull with Kennesaw State? That's in Georgia, I believe.
It
Share
is.
this. We have a fullback here at Northridge High School in Tuscaloosa that's dying to get a invite to your school for an opportunity to play fullback. So Kennesaw State, get the word out if you can. Anybody can share this video, get it out to them. But also the Dabo Swinney thing is also it's fun to talk about. He's actually did that for a teammate of yours, Kevin Turner. His son Nolan Turner, I believe, started as a preferred walk-on and then earned a scholarship. And I believe he'll be playing in the college football semifinal game today against Ohio State. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think he actually ended up. He was going to be a preferred walk-on, but I think he ended up getting a scholarship outright. But he's definitely a scholarship player, multi-year starter, and a big-time safety, and really mission critical for him. I'm not sure if he didn't get a targeting late in that Notre Dame game and may be out the first half of this game, which is the stupidest play penalty in sports. But anyway, I digress, DC. I will say this about Simeon. And I was known as a blocker, and then it was, pretty good runner. I have to say this carefully because he could be listening right now. But he's far more advanced in his ability to block in high school. He's one of the more devastating blockers I've seen at a high school level. And it didn't matter if he was blocking linebackers or defensive linemen. We called upon him to do that at times. So if y'all see him, don't tell him I said this on this broadcast or podcast, but he definitely has that skill down, and I think it will only get better as time comes along.
Well, Martin, there's no shame in that. You taught him everything he knows. I know you were his coach. You're very humble, but you were his running backs coach this past year, and I'm sure you taught him everything he knows, and Simeon does a good job. So, Martin, I want to thank you today for joining us on the DC Capstone Report live today as we preview the game against Notre Dame. I appreciate you, Lance, and I appreciate you allowing us to have a platform on your show every Tuesday. So tell our listeners how they can listen to your show.
Absolutely. If you want to go to Martin Houston Live on Facebook, you can follow there. Martin Houston Live on Twitter, you follow at Martin Houston 35, or you can download the Tide 109 app for the radio station. And not only myself, but there's great programming that happens from 6 to 6 every day. And then on Tuesday nights, I do a show with Ryan Fowler, who hosts a 2 to 6 show called The Game, and we call it Alabama Tradition. And we go from 6 to 7. But you can find all of that with that app, Tide 109 app. And you say, I don't have an app, I don't have a smartphone. You can go to the website at tide109.com as well and find the podcast there, or listen live in all of those different areas. So thanks for the opportunity to be on with you, DC. Glad to return the favor finally.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest today, and thank you for all of our listeners out there. Lance and I really appreciate it. Don't forget to check out RollTideBama.com or FreelancePictures.com for some great quality pictures and video on Alabama football. Lance does a great job. You can follow us on Twitter at DC Capstone Report, or you can follow me on Facebook at DCCapstoneReport.com or DC Capstone Report Facebook page, or you can follow me on Twitter at DavidCott50. Well, this is DC with the DC Capstone Report, and for Martin Houston for joining us today. We always end the show with a big Roll Tide. Hope you have a great and happy New Year.